Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Malifaux. And in this game we get to see Lilith fight yet more gremlins, and how far I can push an extremely tenuous metaphor. There's quite a lot of terrain on this board. All these kind of big house things are impassable. These are forests and these are low walls, height 1 or etc. That's a gallows, and who cares what it counts as, because I just fly over the motherfucker. My opponent won deployment and decided to set up first. And I have to just mention that this is his 5th game in a row. And you might say, well, Mollusk, shame on you for picking on a man when he's down. But no, don't feel sympathy. He's like Goku. Every fight just makes him stronger. And I can tell you now, my friends, this one is pretty brutal. So here we have the Gremlin crew. Defenders of the Emerald, or probably rather, Snot Green Tower. A Stuffed Piglet, McTavish, Old Cranky, and Sammy. With ooh, glowy. Centre stage is the Wizard of Oz, Wong himself, with Do-Over and a Gremlin's Luck. And I'm going to be honest, I looked at these upgrades and thought they were pretty underwhelming. But I invite you to listen on, dear listeners, because this one in particular can do some pretty screwy things. Next we got Francois, with surprise stilts, because I didn't clock that he had them at the start of the game. But I've had my hepatitis shot, and so immune to all your black blood, Jebsen. And an Iron Skeeter. Facing the Gremlin tide, I've brought the Monkey Bird horde of the Wicked Lilith of the West. So we've got a Terratot, Lilith herself, with Living Blade, Beck and Malifaux, and Rapid Growth. The Cherub, Barbarous, Young Nephilim, and Mature Nephilim, with Retribution's Eye. So let's talk about my nefarious plan. So Headhunter with a really killy scheme pool is interesting. There's nowhere on the board that either of us are technically forced to be, except in combat killing each other. And that really frees up where I can play. So I'm looking at this thinking, right, so what I'd ideally like to do is bunch all of my dudes up in a corner somewhere. Like I like this, look at this place, and perhaps here would be a good choke point. Ideally somewhere where some of his crew will be left behind in getting to me, and where I can bring the full weight of my crew to bear. And in an ideal world, I'll sit everyone behind cover out of line of sight, and Lilith can tug people in with Tangled Shadows, send my Mature in to play with the rest of their crew and tie them up, mark the victim for death, kill it, and grow another Mature. His crew looks like it's got a bit of a range game. I mean, it can definitely do combat as well. But if I stay back and play defensive, and he stays back and plays shooty, that should hopefully play to, my favour for head gathering. So that's what I was kind of thinking. Unfortunately, though, with Dorothy's house right here, I just can't resist the bait. This is blocking terrain right in the centre of the board. Lilith just loves it. And so the plan is to hang over this, hang out in this middle bit, put up some forests to get a nice big piece of blocking terrain all the way across there, and try to snag things in. I was trying to stay a little way away from McTavish, who's got the glowy goo on him, or whatever it is. But looking at this now, I've got I've gone for the wrong side. This is such a great compound. I put the terrain just here, or I can really block in and castle up in this place. It's got his, one of his 2 minions and peons right here. McTavish has got such a great range and such a, he's such a threat that he's going to be able to hit almost anywhere on the board pretty quickly. Well, not anywhere on the board. You know what I mean? Anywhere worth being. And that gives a greater number of his models further to walk to try to get to me. So I reckon this would have been the much better side to be on, although I do kind of like being central because I don't know if he's got entourage, and that allows Lilith to really put a spanner in the works of that if I think that's what he's going for. So in terms of people's jobs, obviously the Mature is there to beat face, so is the Young, and with the amount of enforcers facing me, I'm quite liking my chances of doing some growing. Barbarous is just there for disruption. He can push people off head markers and allow me to go and grab them, and hopefully draw flak off the Mature with his challenge ability. Terratots are there to pick up heads and use their pounce from my crew's pushes, and the Cherub's there for marking things to death more easily, and it's a gigantic telltale flag that's what I'm doing. But to be honest, in this scheme pool, who wouldn't? Turn 1, a solid hand. I manoeuvre my pretties up cautiously, but not cautiously enough. I had this Terratot up here, with space for Lilith to stand, But Cranky moved up, dropped a ski marker, and McTavish was able to push, eat it, and kill it. Tried to stop it, nothing I could do, and first blood goes to the Gremlins, and the head marker has been placed out over here. And that somewhat changes my plans, because I want it. So by the end of the turn, this is what it looks like. I walked Lilith up, and then cast Tangle Shadows on the young Nephilim, swapping it for Barbarous, and bringing it into base contact with me. And this enabled Barbarous to walk and nimble up here and then go defensive. So I put him in cover behind this wall. He's got his defensive, and you know, he's pretty good. He's pretty tanky. I'm hoping I'm far enough away that if Wong targets him with some blasts and gets them off, you know, the rest of my crew is pretty safe. And next turn I can quickly nimble in and grab that marker. Considering how fast Gremlins have the potential to be, and this crew can definitely do it, I should have put him up close to this marker to prevent them from just running in and grabbing it if they got the initiative. I would have loved to protect him with forests, but you know, this is where I was realising my deployment over this side was a bit of a pain. So I opted to risk Barbarous. He's there to distract them anyway, and try to protect the rest of my crew as best I could from being torn to shreds. I know I'm bunched, I know Wong's a blast master, but our plucky wizard is going to have to get pretty committed if he wants to draw a line of sight on, you know, my bunchiness. We go into turn 2, and that's a pretty hand. I do love Rush of Magic and Soul Stoning. Apparently not as good as my opponent's hand in the first turn, however. Fortune smiles on me, and I get the initiative, so Barbarous picks up the Teratot's head and wades into combat. Hopefully he can soak some attacks up for a turn or two, and I've cuddled him up to Bert so he can bleed all over him. Only to find that Bert just ignores pulses, because he's a gremlin and rules don't matter to them. So McTavish proceeds to hit Barbarous with a red joker for damage, and why yes, with Glowy that is a lot of damage. Okay, so the Gremlins just step things up a gear. Well, the Neverborn are more than happy to play that game. Lilith clicks her ruby slippers together and Tangle Shadows the Iron Skeeter, swapping it for a rather angry, mature Nephilim. She then Wicked Vines Francisco and throws the trees up again in front of her, and then I think she hits the Skeeter, bringing it to its last 2 wounds. Over on the front lines, Bert recklessly kills Barbarous, and then puts a severe damage on the Nephilim. Seriously, these guys weren't pulling their punches. It felt like I took a lot of severes this game. And the Nephilim spitefully bleeds on Sammy and Wong. It then minces old Cranky, plopping his head down right here, and takes a chunk out of Wong, causing him to burn a Soulstone. But I'm pretty happy with Cranky's death, because it means that McTavish won't be getting any more Soulstones back for the Oz team. And I could try to fool you and say, well, tactically I didn't declare this scheme because I didn't want his pig to run off into the corner and deny me all the points, but we all know I forgot. Now, Iron Skeeters are enforcers? You don't say! The young Nephilim marks it for death and eats it, growing rapidly into a mature mwahahaha. And that's what we want a board to look like. Wong hits the mature Nephilim, disappears behind his emerald screen and teleports over here to grab a head marker. The Teratot moves to be in contact with the head and twiddles its thumbs. Sammy hits the mature and puts a hex on him, and the young Nephilim moves up to be in position to get stuck in next turn. I'm trying to keep him out of the way of Francois, who can't see him, and McTavish, but yeah, no. McTavish is just so fucking dangerous with his ignores cover, ignores combat. Absolutely top tier model. And Glowy just makes me sick. So Teratot and Lilith take damage from burning at the end of the turn, and we move on into turn 3. The Wind of Fate continues to blow in my favour. I get the initiative, the mature marks Sammy for death, and then has a go at killing her. But the Black Joker is the wrong way to try to do that. So Bert goes reckless, he marks the mature Nephilim for death, and proceeds to show him how it's done by killing him. I need to stop the Gremlins from picking up those heads, and Sammy's looking pretty nourishing, if you know what I mean. So I fly the young Nephilim over here, hit Sammy, and if I do damage her, which I don't think I do, it's not enough, and she lives. She hits him back, I think missing the first attack, but then red jokering the damage flip. No, my mistake, she must have marked him for death, and then hit him with the red joker. And basically, they're both marked for death, both on 1 wound, and my Nephilim has poison too. Looks like we're both going to be scoring a point at the end of this round. Suddenly remembering Hunting Party, I decide it's about time to do something about that. So Lilith, what does she do? She walks up over here, she roots this guy down again and puts the forest up in front of him. Because I freaking hate Francisco and he can go play with himself. I Tangle Shadow the explosive pig to come stand next to Lilith and swap him up for my mature Nephilim. And that works quite well because now the Nephilim can charge his master or try to slow up McTavish. But I can also charge the pig, whereas where I was before I wouldn't have been able to. I'm not looking forward to the fact it's going to explode, but Lilith, take it for the points. Deciding that the Nephilim just has to go before the end of the turn, Francois wades in, or whatever he does, pushes over to Sammy, takes his damage, and then kills the Nephilim, who then bleeds on Sammy, killing her. But this enables Wong to hit McTavish, do his disappearing act, and appear over here to claim the marker. Or maybe he just ran there, I can't remember. It took all 3 AP to do it. Pterotot grabs the Skeeter's head and runs around over here. A bad move considering my opponent has just declared a hunting party for my Nephilim. But I think I was thinking about trying to stop him from getting head markers. Yeah, that was a bad move. McTavish almost certainly shoots at the mature, probably doing some damage. I think he got off, not too bad considering. The mature looks like he charged the pig and killed it, netting me some hunting party, and then the cherub... I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, guys. I don't know what I'm doing. The cherub has run up to McTavish in a desperate attempt to give my opponent more points. I think I'm just trying to tie him up and stop him from shooting, but I mean he's already engaged with the Nephilim, and I should just be running this thing for the fucking hills. Anyway, we hit turn 4, I'm soulstoning, and I can't complain about that. My opponent wins the initiative, and Wong goes frickin' mental. He uses his Gremlins luck upgrade thing, and happily shoots on into this engagement. Basically what this thing does is gives him a positive flip for all non-attack and damage flips he makes in this turn or something like that. Which means he positive flips for every model in this engagement, or 2 inches of it, giving him much more control over who's taking the hit. So the mature takes a little bit, to be honest, he was so lucky to survive this. Took a little bit of damage, but Black Jokered at one point and so got hit, but I don't think he took any damage from that, as he passed his defense. And that is my opponent's deck and discard pile from 1 activation. Just crazy. But because Gremlins are little assholes, it's not the end of their turn. Francois companions in, goes reckless, walks around here and probably charges he might have just charged the Nephilim straight up. Now I'm worried he'll kill me on the charge and then be able to go after my Pterotot or Lilith. So I do my best, guys, I do my best. And the mature manages to go 3 rounds with this death machine before hitting the dirt. So yeah, the Pterotot loses no time in getting out of dodge. I actually dropped a 7 from my hand this turn to keep like a rubbish 3 of masks, to make sure I could sprint him and get him over here. Lilith marks Francois for death, hacks him down, but I can't get that head marker. So I put up my forests and await the inevitable. I use my last stone for cards. It's not awful, but I'd wish for better. I lose the initiative, oh no! But walks up to here and charges the Pterotot. It's got 2 wounds remaining because it took some burning damage earlier from the Iron Skeeter's demise. He Black Jokers his first damage flip. Come on, Pterotot! But in the end it's not enough, and Bert claims the points. So in the final moves of the game, Lilith collects Francois' head, runs up over here, hits Wong, who teleports away. He then focuses and blasts her, but she survives. McTavish walks through the woods to make her a gator snack, but she survives. And that, dear friends, is the end of the game. What a bloodbath. So hard fought, and I had really excellent fun playing this. Such a close game. What were the scores, I hear you ask? The Neverborn scored 3 points for Mark for Death, with the deaths of the Iron Skeeter, Sammy, and Francois. The Gremlins scored 3 points for Mark for Death, with the deaths of Barbarous, a mature, and a young Nephilim. The Neverborn scored 3 points for Hunting Party, after killing the stuffed piglet, his last minion or peon, in turn 3. And the Gremlins scored 3 points for Hunting Party, with the deaths of my young Nephilim, my cherub, and my Pterotot. Heads are a bit more complicated, so let's walk through them. Let's do Neverborn first. Cherub was killed by Wong in turn 4, dropping no head. Pterotot was shot by McTavish, turn 1, dropping head, which Barbarous picked up in turn 2. Bert killed the second Pteratot in turn 5 but didn't have enough AP to pick up his head. One of my young Nephilim was killed by Francois over here and dropped this head. My second young Nephilim changed into a mature and was killed by Francois over here, dropping this head. My first mature was killed by Bert over here, dropping this head. Barbarous was killed in turn 2 by Bert over here, and Wong picked up his head. For the Gremlins, Old Cranky was killed in turn 2 by the mature Nephilim, and he illegally placed a head here, so he shouldn't count this. Ignore that one. The Stuffed Piglet was killed over here by the mature in turn 3 and dropped a head here. The Iron Skeeter was killed by the young Nephilim here and dropped a head for the Pteratot to pick up in turn 3. Sammy was killed by Black Blood, I think that was in turn 3, and dropped a head, which Wong then picked up. Francois was killed by Lilith in turn 4 and picked up his head in turn 5. Bert, McTavish, Wong and Lilith survived the match, and so no heads dropped there. That's everyone accounted for, so the Gremlins got 2 points for Headhunter and the Nephilim scored 3. Technically making this game 9-8 to the Nephilim, Neverborn, which is actually a bit annoying because we left this game thinking it was a draw, and a well-deserved one at that. As I said, this was my opponent's 5th game in a row, and in the last turn I think he was convinced he'd scored all his heads, and I'd lost track. Basically he used Wong's attacks to attack Lilith, and there was absolutely no reason why he couldn't have walked over here and collected that head. So yeah, I'm calling this a 9-all draw. Wong can wave his magic wand and make it happen. After clicking his heels and saying there's no game like a draw multiple times, I don't know. But yeah, really fun game. I really enjoyed doing this. I think I played okay for most of it. Again, I regret not deploying over in this area. I allowed myself to be sucked out one model at a time into the middle of his crew rather than kidnapping Gremlins one at a time into a mine. And really big mistakes made in turn 4 with moving the Pteratot and the Cherub up. That was just dumb. And to be honest, I played the Cherub awfully this game. I don't think it did anything other than give the Gremlins points. Yeah, I think I played it too far back in the early game, and it just couldn't get anywhere it needed to be until too late. But my thinking now is that it's got to be joined at the hip with Lilith. That will allow it to be up around the mid-board with maximum protection, and the essentially free interact that it gives her just goes amazingly with Instinctual, turning her into a pretty awesome scheme runner. So yeah, I'll try to give that a go in future. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the game. I certainly did. Take care.